Hello, everybody, and welcome to Horsehead Weekly, week number six. Six, damn. All right, so let's get going. Wow. All right, it is literally just me and you, Malcolm, for the start here. So hopefully more people show up. But hey, whatever. We'll have some fun. And as always, gotta go fast. We got a lot to cover this week, so let's get into it. And as always, we're gonna start off with last week. I think I'm pretty sure I killed the right audios this time, so I think I'm good. Um, so yeah, let's jump into it. Last week, uh, real funny thing happened. It seemed like the best players played each other, and then everyone else played each other as well. So if you take a look, you have myself, who was the fourth highest scoring team, losing to Maddie, the number two scoring team, and then if you look down two below us, you'll find Steve falling to Nick despite putting up the third highest scoring team. And yeah, Nick ended up having that because he ran to the highest score with Nick. that's just really rough. That's just bad beats. I don't really know what to do about that. I mean, I'm as one of the people who fell victim there. It's just kind of real sad. Um, but hey, whatever. That's the breaks for those two. On the other end of the spectrum, Doug ends up putting up really just not a good day at 126 points. But because Malcolm ended up putting up the second lowest score in the league, he ends up still being able to get the win there. Uh, Other scores of note, James ends up going from 3-0 to 3-2 after losing two divisional games back to back, falling to Matt, his brother, uh, because he put up the least points in the league. That's only on you, James. You really can't put that on anybody else. I mean, you can put it on your players, but you can't put it on anybody else. Jerry ended up playing up against Dave, and Jerry took that down to stop the skid. He started out, I believe, 2-0, fell to 2-2, and now he's back up to 3-2, above 500. Not allowing Dave to have his first win of the season, which I believe it was Dave. So Dave or Sean, one of the people who haven't won yet, who was lamenting their choices from this week because they had some people who they had a gut feeling about, and they didn't play them, and that's what ended up costing them the week. I think it was actually Sean who let's move on to that as the last matchup for the week, who ended up falling to Mike, who ends up moving to 2-3. Climbing out of there after the 0-3 start, getting that garbage rocket engine firing finally, and hopefully you can keep it going. But we're gonna move on to the next slide, and that's just standings. Who cares about these standings? They're poop anyways. No one really cares about any of this. So we're just gonna keep on moving, and we're gonna move on to the pretty nice, beautiful standings of mine that I have created lovingly every single week for everybody. And we're gonna find Matt M and Malcolm sitting at 1-2 with the buys. Both of them undefeated in their division. They both have over 700 points. Only one loss to their name. I mean, they're both doing very, very well. Malcolm had one bad week, but he's still, definitely the number 2 seed in the league. The other two winners of or leaders in their divisions, I should say, is Doug, by virtue of his tiebreaker over Jerry, and Nick, who is just the lone 3-2 person in his division, also has a great tiebreaker, so that's good for him as well. Moving on to the wild cards, it's all Kathy's kids all day with Matt S at 4-1, his only loss coming to Malcolm, and James at 3-2, his only losses coming from Malcolm and Matt S. So really, it's just good stuff all around. So just great job by Kathy's kids. You guys are just a real solid division. Moving on to the two people getting in the bind of the 550 at this moment, we have Jerry and Steve. Jerry being the lone person above 500, not in the top 6, and Steve being the best person at 2-3 due to his tiebreakers, as he has actually beaten Mike. So he gets the win for heads-to-heads against people, and that brings us to the people fighting for their chance to get to the fight for 50. Myself and Mike, whose only wins have come from Dave and Gabe. So definitely a very clear division right now as to who the bottom 4 are in terms of ranking because of all of this. But you also have to note that Steve has the most points for on the season. I've had a couple of good weeks. Mike's at almost 750. So anything can happen any given week, and I think that's really showed by these standings here. And it's also shown here in the Eliminator. As you can see, we had another elimination this week, and that elimination is Jerry. So Jerry is now out. He has yet to score above average on a given week, and he got lucky the first 2 weeks, but then the last 3, he's fallen victim 3 weeks in a row. And if you fall victim for 3 weeks, you're going to be eliminated. So he is gone, and he is joining Gabe and Dave as the bottom feeders of the league. Also getting strikes from this week is James, earning his second strike in as many weeks, as well as Malcolm earning his second strike in as many weeks. And Doug, after going 3 weeks in a row below average, finally it catches up to him, and he ends up getting his first strike of the season in this given week, which puts him at 1 strike, joining a bunch of other people with Matt S. being the only person without a strike so far, and he's doing it, with only 2 weeks being below average, which is, pretty good. Nick and Steve are up there with only their 1 week that they were below average being the weeks that they got the strike, as well. Mike doing the same thing. And if you want to just look at how people have been doing lately, Mike and Nick are the only two people to not be below average over the last 3 weeks. With myself, Matt M, and Matt S all being the only people with only 1 week below 500. So just a little bit of data there for you. But moving on, we will have another week with 4 strikes because we are down to 9 people now. So if one more person gets eliminated, which could be Matt M, Malcolm, or James next week, we are down to 8. And with only 8 people, we lose another strike. So, if you want us to try to survive this week without a strike, because then it maybe gets a little bit easier next week, or at least it doesn't get harder next week. So let's move on to the next thing, and we have the incentives. So if you see a green stripe on somebody, the green means that they were the leader last week. If you see yellow, they were in second place last week. So Malcolm retains his top spot with Patty Mahomes, continuing to be the #1 quarterback owner in the league, with Jerry coming in at #2 after a just fantastic week from Breeze, and Steve falls to #3, but still all of them within 7 points, and Mike even tagging in there below 20 within the lead. Over at running backs, pretty much everyone stayed in the same spots, with Matt M, Steve, and Mike all putting in very good weeks and keeping themselves all within a couple points of one another. So that is a close little three-way action to keep your eye on moving forward. Over at wide receivers, we have Steve retaining his top spot, but Matt S closed in pretty significantly on him after putting up a really, really good week last week, which meant he ended up jumping James, who ended up falling down to third, with myself being the last person really trying to keep up with Steve as he begins to put a little bit more distance every week on everybody. Over at tight ends, Matt M put in a absolutely stellar week, and because of that, he moves up to #1. Doug moves down to #3, and I split the difference and stay at #2. And I think with that, yeah, there's only Nick really we talked about right now, who is within 10 points of the leader. So that's those top 4. Moving over to defensive line, Nick just continues to put in work on that, and he will, continue to be the leader, good 10 points ahead of everybody else. Over at linebacker, though, it is a lot closer, as I mentioned last week. I think this is going to continue to be close week in and week out. With Nick, James, and Steve all within 5 points, and then you can add Matt M and Matt S all being within 10 points. Jerry moving up to be within 15 points. Honestly, this is going to be a really close matchup, and I'm real curious to see how it's going to end up working out. And then finally, defensive backs. Doug ends up continuing to be #1 because he had a nice cushion going into the last 2 weeks, which he did not do very well in. But Matt M, Mike, both of them put in really good weeks and end up leapfrogging Nick. But this is another really close for a lot of the people. There's no one really out of it yet besides maybe Jerry, and Malcolm is beginning to slip away if he doesn't end up turning that around on the defensive back for $5. Moving on to this week in their fabulous pickups, it is myself going after Wendell Smallwood for $40. If nothing else, even if he's just a 1 week rental, I will take it. If he wins me the week. I will spend $40 on a player to win a week, and that might be what he ends up being because there's talk of Shady being traded, and everyone thinks Corey Clement's going to come back and be better. Who knows what's going to happen? It's tough. It's going to be tough, and I'm real curious to see what ends up happening with that. So hopefully I didn't just burn $40, but it's probably not going to be great. Nick ends up coming in at #2, the second highest spender of the week with $14 for Mike Davis, the backup running back, maybe third string running back if Penny ends up getting right out in Seattle. And then just a slew of other people just getting picked up with only real fights coming with Cameron Brate, Russell Wilson, and Ronald Jones, all of which were people that I wanted as well, but ended up not getting because they were taken by somebody with either higher waiver priority or whatever. So yeah, hopefully, my $40 here doesn't end up going to waste. End up being able to beat Malcolm because I'm sitting at $21 now. So I might end up having to just like sell somebody just for straight fab later. Like maybe I can be like, hey Steve, look, I have this player. I will sell you him for like 25 fab, just so I have a chance at getting somebody in the future. Or maybe there won't be anybody good going forward. Who knows? I mean, I don't. But yeah, it's going to be rough for me moving forward as I fall down to being the low man on the fab budget. But from top to bottom, we have Steve, Doug, James, Jerry, Matt S, Matt M. All of them above 70, all very, very healthy so far. And then you have Dave, Mike, Gabe's, Malcolm, and Nick, all, healthy, but maybe they can't do anything too splashy unless they want to really be out of fab. And then me, who just basically can't do anything anymore. I just have to do nothing. And as Malcolm says in the chat, yes, you are almost back up to 50. You are wheeling and dealing your way back up the fab rankings. Yeah, if you want to be at the top of the fab power rankings, you're gonna have to do something pretty crazy. But you are working your way up. You went from the bottom up to because you were last week. You're now up to 10th. So congratulations on that. So for this week's matchups, as I've been alluding to the entire time, I am playing up against Malcolm in what is going to be probably a very close, very hard-fought loss for me. But hey, I wasn't worried about it until he made the trade to get Mixon and to get rid of his stud who had a bye this week. Yeah, it sucks, but hey, that's how it goes. So now I have to hope that my team can pop off and take him down. Moving on over to Matt versus Jerry. I think that's another really interesting matchup because it's two people with very good records, but I really do think that Matt's just going to take it. That's Matt Selway, or S up there. Sorry about that. Moving on down, we have Dave versus Nick, and as I said earlier, Nick's been putting up really good numbers as of late. Dave, definitely the bottom feeder in the league, so I feel like Nick's gonna get another win, move on up to 4-2. Steve versus Sean. Steve had a bunch of very good weeks. As of late, maybe not so much. So I'm kind of torn as to how I feel about this. I think maybe this could be the week Sean gets the win, but I'm not really gonna, put too much weight on that. I think either one of these teams could win. They're both, I think, very good teams, much better than their records show. Moving on over, we have Mike versus James. Can James right the ship? Is the garbage rocket going to continue to take off? I mean, these are two ships heading in very, very different directions right now. Both of them, Mike started 0-3, James started 3-0, and now they're both could be 500 after this week. That's pretty crazy. And finally, we have Doug versus Matty M. And I think this should be a win for Matty M. I really like his team, and I like what he's doing with it. So I feel like especially if LeSean McCoy ends up getting traded, I think that team's just going to take off and be absolutely studly stupid. So yeah, there is that with all of that. But for the game of the week, I believe this is going to be it. It is Mike versus James. It is the two ships passing in the night in opposite directions. Will Mike be able to be the garbage rocket we all believe he is and soar into greatness, or will James be able to shoot him down and reclaim his spot around the top of the league? I don't know. I don't know which one it's going to be, but it'll be really interesting to see how it works out. This is how I see it. I think, I gave the advantage check. ESPN liked Chris Thompson over Philip Lindsay. One, Chris Thompson might not play. Two, it's against a pretty decent defense, and I think Philip Lindsay, while against a better defense, is on a team that's going to be definitely chasing points versus Chris Thompson, who might not have to chase points, so they might be able to lean on somebody else. Plus, he has injury concerns as is, so if he ends up getting a really, really high workload, then I think it's just not going to go well for him. So that's my feelings on that. Another place I disagree is I think Derwin James. I'm giving him the check mark over Landon Collins because it is, as a rookie quarterback, I don't care how good you are. I really do believe in Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to be great, but He always has that chance to put up like a 3 or 4 interception game out of nowhere. And if he ends up doing that, then yeah, I feel like Derwin James is going to get a pick or two. And I think that's going to put it wet. It's going to put it over to him. And because of that possibility, I'm just going to put a little bit more on James over Collins. And then finally, he didn't have Danny Trevathan in, so I gave him the check mark for that because Miami has kind of been hot garbage lately the last 2 weeks. And yeah, let's see what happens there. And if you look at the very bottom, you can see that they both are missing a star stud player for New Orleans. So it's not like you can really look at the bye weeks and be like, oh man, this is such a big advantage because they're missing somebody. They're both missing somebody, and I think Mike did a really good job making a trade for Michael Thomas this week, considering that his opponent is already missing somebody really, really good. So good for him on that. So what I'm going to be doing this week for the special segment is I'm going to be going over the waivers. For the last few weeks, someone gave me a lot of garbage about, oh my god, I can't believe you spent $40 on people. So I want to look at everybody else and see how terrible their waiver pickups were. We're going to start with Gabe spending $32 before week 1 even started on Alfred Morris. And yeah, that probably worked out well for him if Breida ends up being hurt long term because that's going to be really good. But so okay, so one guy spends a lot of money and he ends up having a guy who works out, and my guy might not work out. Okay, sure. So what happened in week 2? Yeah, let's see how these guys did. Philip Lindsay for $36. He ended up being an RB2. So that's really what you'd expect probably from somebody off the waiver wire for $36, an RB2. And yeah, he's been really consistent and good. So yeah, good on Dave for seeing that and picking him up. TJ Yeldon to Malcolm for $27. Yeah, no, he's also been pretty good considering the fact that the Jacksonville's number 1 guy Fournette's been kind of hurt for a while, and so Yeldon's definitely been killing it, especially with him being out again this week. So Yeldon's going to have another week of running it, so that was good for him. And then Philip Dorsett, he's been fine, but it's only $13. So let's move on to week 3. Let's move on to week 3, and Jesse James for $15. That didn't work out, so that's something. That's something good for me. Deshaun Jackson, he was like the number 1 wide receiver for a couple weeks. So we're just ignore him. Corey Clement, he could be the number 1 guy in Philly moving forward if they don't trade for Shady. So that's not good for me. And then Chris Ivory could be the number 1 guy in Buffalo moving forward if Shady gets traded. So at least one of them's going to work out and the other one's not. So that sucks. Okay, so what about week 4? Well, Eifert ended up getting hurt, and Christian Kirk's been fine. Droppable, but he could pop off, so whatever. No one really spent a lot of money that week. And then this week, look, 2 people who spent a bunch of money on players who have yet to see the football field since they spent the money on them. Yeah, that's right. I dropped $21 last week, too, and neither of those players have even played a game of football yet since I bought them 2 weeks ago. So deal with it. Jordy Nelson also, pretty good pickup by Gabe's. I think I flamed him for it earlier, but the guy just seems to be timeless, at least for a little while longer. And Jared Goff, he had a bad week last week, but he's still like one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league right now. So hey, yay! I'm just gonna move on because this isn't working out. Oh, good, perfect, thank you. And that brings us to this week's sponsor. And this week's sponsor is Galladay's Learn Ballet with Your Bay Getaway. Want to learn an exquisite form of dance with your significant other from the next Megatron and the happiest place on earth? Well, there's only one place where you can do that, and it's on Galladay's Learn Ballet with Your Bay Getaway, located just off the Orlando Beltway. And as you can see here, clearly not photoshopped, or painted, rather. Kenny Galladay catching a football while doing a pirouette, while being caught by his partner in ballet. Yeah, it really is beautiful when you can see something like this happen and just get this perfect moment in time caught on film. So yeah, just beautiful, perfect. And now let's get on over to the rankings as I ignore Malcolm's comments in chat about my paint abilities. So in this week's rankings, this will be the 90s Tune Edition. I didn't have anything going on, and I was looking up like old songs because I was bored. I was on like one of those listicles that was talking about like, oh, songs from one hit wonders, and there was a couple from the 90s, and I was like, let me look at some 90s songs, and then I ended up just making another ranking. So we're gonna start off with the C class, and it is No Scrubs by TLC. And in case you're wondering, TLC is singing to these teams saying, I don't want you, you're full of scrubs, not saying that these teams are so good they have no scrubs. So the first scrub is Gabe. That's wrong. Well, Gabe's sitting there now, anyways. I meant to move Gabe up, and Dave down because I think Dave is definitely number 12 this week. So just pretend they're switched, and I'm going to talk about Gabe because I'm so freaking good at this. So Gabe ended up moving up to a number that I can't remember right now. Because I kind of like what his team's doing. David Johnson's beginning to make a turnaround. I think Landry and Green, Eckler, they're all putting in pretty good work right now, and I'm curious to see if Eckler can keep it up. But if he can, then you have your second running back, you have your two wide receivers. You're missing a quarterback because I'm not really sold on Alex Smith being able to be a week in and week out thing, but you can definitely move people around and make that work. Your tight end is somebody who's going to be touchdown and bust every week, but if you don't have one like those top five guys, that's what you are no matter what. Your defense is fine, and then when you look at your bench, you'd expect to find somebody on bye considering you're starting Dion Lewis because he really hasn't been good this year. But you have people who can make stuff work. You can put in Sterling Shepard because I think he's going to be really good this week up against Philly because I believe Jalen Mills is the guy who would be covering him, and he's just been absolute trash this season. So hopefully they can figure that out and just start, pounding it to Shepard all day. Um, I mean, that's what I would be doing. I'd be hitting him and I'd be hitting Barkley. Sorry, OBJ, you're a good player, but this is not the week for you. There's much better matchups on the field. You can also start like Alfred Blue or somebody else if you end up seeing a matchup that's really good. I think Blue has a good matchup this week, and Blue also has this whole thing where he's, might be the only running back on the team this week. But just some thoughts for you but other than that, I think you have a pretty solid team, and I think you're definitely better than 12th. At number 11, I have Jerry. Because apparently, I don't know if this just didn't save after I made some corrections at the end, but I'm going to continue on. We have Jerry at number 10. Just continues to be plagued by injuries from Leonard Fournette, but it's not really hurting him because he has TJ Yeldon as, on his team. And, he's been just doing really solid work week in and week out, helping out. But when you look at the rest of the team, you got what? You got Breeze and Tate, who are both on bye. So those are both very good players. They're just not able to do anything this week. You got Doug Baldwin, who's coming back from an injury, so maybe he'll get better. Allen Robinson could be good moving forward if, they end up throwing the ball a bunch out in Chicago, which they did before the bye. Maybe that's just a one-time thing, but we'll see what happens with that. He also has Cook, who's another, one of his hobbled sophomores who might not end up be doing anything. He's got Miller, who's just been kind of crap all season. I mean, I really don't want to put his team this low, but Jerry is number 11, and I don't want him this low. I don't think he deserves to be this low, but at the same time, I really don't see him being any higher until he can get some people healthy and he can get some stuff happening. He'll probably move up again next week. This is just a little hiccup because, Tate and Breeze are out, and his team has been underperforming as of late, but if he can turn it around, he can make it work, then good for him. He'll be moving back up. But for now, he's down at number 11. At the real number 10, we have Doug. Doug is at number 10 because, yes, he has Zeke. Sony Michel has been really good as of late. And he has the choice between Roethlisberger and Big Ben if it ends up working out one way or the other. Yes, those are all very good players. However, Trey Burton's been kind of a bust. Brandon Cooks is hurt. The aforementioned Aaron Rodgers is hurt. Chris Carson, I don't know what he's been up to this last week. If he's healthy, it looks like he is, but you never really know. I mean, he has a solid team. He's just in a situation where I don't like what they're doing right now. If DT ends up being the guy who everyone thinks he can be, if well, I thought, well, not who everyone thinks he could be. No one really liked DT going into the season except for me. If he's the guy who puts up 19 points like he did last week, then great. DT is DT, and you're going to be happy with that. If Keenan Allen ends up turning it on and being that top 10 guy that wide receiver everyone thought he was going to be, then great. You have a top 10 guy. Sony Michel, he have a lot of people saying he's top 10. Zeke, top 5. The number one quarterback definitely should be able to be got by alternating between Rodgers and Roethlisberger at the right times. Has been looking great. So you have a lot of people with a lot of potential. I'm just not a fan of where they're doing it right now. So for now, Doug, you're at number 10. I'm sorry, but I think in the future, if you just have you have one good week where your team comes together and puts up a big number, then I'll be really happy with it. But for now, I really can't support your team, and I'm going to have to put you at number 10. And this next one is the B class. And that's right. It is 1 week by Bare Naked Ladies because I think these are the two teams that are 1 week away from catapulting themselves up and being in that top tier. I really love these two teams. I just want to see it one more week to make sure that they can actually handle it and they can be consistent. And then if they can do that, they're going to shoot up the rankings a bunch. But for now, I'm keeping them where they are. And the first one of those is Dave, who isn't Dave, but actually Gabe. So Gabe is here. Dave is 12. So I'm going to talk about Dave as if Dave was number 12. And just remember that Gabe is actually here at number 9 because Gabe is 1 week away from being good. Easy peasy. So at number 12, we have Dave. So my issue with him is he really only has 2 players on his team that I like, and that is his quarterback, who is Stafford and Luck. You can alternate between them on good matchups and stuff like that, and OBJ. And other than that, I'm really not a fan of most of the players on his team. Jordan Reed started out hot, as did Adrian Peterson, as did a lot of people on his team, but since then they've all kind of started to falter. I know Lynch has, continued to show that he doesn't care that he's an old man, but maybe that's starting to show. I think he's going to have a good week this week. It's a revenge game against a bad Seahawks defense, but moving forward, maybe he's not going to be great. So I think that's going to be rough for him. Then you have Nyheim Hines, who, he's been fine, but he's also still like Nyheim Hines. Like, he's no one to really be super excited about. Your defense, you have the number 5 cornerback, but a number 5 cornerback is still a number 5 cornerback. It's not a safety. It's not great. Vontaze Perfect came back last week, and he ended up not even putting up 10 points. So maybe after a couple more weeks, he can get going. Who knows? I'm just not a huge fan of your team, and it doesn't really help out when you look at the bench either. I mean, you got Ryan Grant, who's putting up okay numbers. Emmanuel Sanders, you traded for right before he started to not be as good. John Brown, same deal. Mike Williams and Kenny Stills have both been not great as of late. So I don't know. This is why I have him at number 12. I really only like a couple players on his team, and I'd like to see, maybe after next week, if he does good, then he'll move up. But for now, I'm just not a fan of your team, so you're going to stay at number 12. And what comes after number 12? Number 8, and that is myself, the second of the 1 week away teams, because I think my team is good. I think if you did a redraft right now of the top 15 players off the board, Saquon, Julio, and Thielen would be taken. Maybe not by people in this league, but I think a lot of leagues would have those 3 be top 3 players taken, or top 15 players taken. And with that, you have to have a decent team, and it's not like the rest of my people are scrubs. I mean, I have Kerryon Johnson, who could end up being something. Same thing can be said about Aaron Jones, Taylor Gabriel, Jameis Winston, and Cam Newton. Those guys should be able to combine for very high-scoring duo. But now, hey, look, okay, Milk, I'm calling you out right now. Julio is not allergic to the end zone. He runs routes in there. He does what he can. It's just Matt Ryan's allergic to throwing him the ball in the end zone. Get it right. Matt Ryan is the problem, not Julio. Because I think Julio can make the plays. He's just always getting, covered really well. And it's just that he can't really do it. I would love to see him get thrown to, but hey, this is how it is. Uh, so anyways, moving on, I have a good team otherwise, and my defense I really like. I got Khalil Mack, Rashad Jones is back, and hopefully he's putting up safety number one numbers like he did last year. And then I have Smith and Wagner, who given as of late haven't been doing what they've been doing properly. Uh, they're supposed to be like top five guys. They're not being that yet. I'm going to give them another couple weeks before I start hunting on the waiver wire because I think they have the talent and the situation. But if they don't, then they don't, and they're going to be said bye bye to and kicked out of the team, and I'm going to be looking somewhere else for people. But for now, I feel like I have a really good team. I have a lot of people who can fill in that flex spot or the running back spot. Like right now, Chris Godwin has a great matchup this week. I love it. He could be really good. Dante Foreman could come back. I don't know. I like what my team has potential wise. I just need to see it actualize. And so yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens next week. Hopefully this is a good week for me. And I just but hopefully not a like top four score, but a loss type of week because that'd just be annoying for me. Moving on to the A class, we have the Tum Thumping by Chumbawamba group because you know what? They got knocked down and they're trying to get back up again. This is this is a team of people who are trying after having a good start, but hopefully they can get back up again, and I want to see if they can do it. I want to see if they can actually manage that. And at number 7, falling down from number 4 last week, is Malcolm. I think this is just a 1 week hiatus from being near the top. I think this is just a one shot deal. So let's see how it ends up going long term. I like Patrick Mahomes. I think he just had a bad week. You had 2 players who ended up not being able to play. I think because Geronimo Allison was hurt, and you had somebody else who couldn't play last week. But now you have Joe Mixon, who's your running back 1, Hyde as your running back 2. I think those are both pretty solid. Your wide receivers definitely took a hit because of the trade you made, but I think you're fine with T.Y. Hilton as your wide receiver 1, and then Allison, or if you really like it, Cooper, if he ends up becoming what everyone thinks he should be. And I think Callaway's still going to be good. I think he's a really good guy. I think, I like him. I like Antonio Callaway. I think he's going to be good. You just have to, and I think this is the week you're going to see it, but who knows. And then you have the number 1 tight end, which is a very coveted spot, and at your flex, you can just park Devontae Freeman or, rotate Hyde and Mixon into that slot because you have 4 running backs that you can just start on any given week. So I really like what your team's doing. I seriously, I do. So this is just a 1 week hiatus because you had a couple bad weeks in a row. I think you can turn it around this week. And other teams looking to turn it around this week is James. After 3-0 to 3-2, I like your team. I like what you got going on. Again, you have a lot of really talented players on your team, like Alvin Kamara, who's currently sitting out this week. Oh, you changed your lineup around. Whatever. My analysis still stands from before. I do not like Alshon Jeffrey this week because I don't think this is an Alshon week. I think this is definitely a running back week, but hey, that's just me. But for the rest of your guys, hold on one quick second here. So, there's just some stuff going on outside. I'm gonna have to do this a little bit quicker than I wanted to. Sorry, guys. So we have like Goff at number 1 as your quarterback. Yeah, you gave up Cam for him, but Goff has been really good lately. He is on a high-powered offense. He's just missing the touchdowns, and I think he can be really great. So, yeah. And if this is the week that Derrick Henry goes off, then you know what? Against Baltimore especially, and he loses because of it, then he got it. He got it. He was the guy who did the thing. I don't think it's gonna happen, but yeah, no, it could definitely be pretty funny. But yeah, he just has some spooky guys in the running backs two slot still, but I do like his wide receivers and Cook, Goff, his defense. They're all really solid. So really curious to see how he ends up doing moving forward with that running back two slot. But otherwise, I really like his team. It just hasn't been performing as of late. Uh, Now we have the A plus class, which is the wannabe class. They are people who wanna be in that top group, but they're just not quite there yet. And that's going to start with Nick because I can't move Nick up too high too fast or else his head's going to explode. All your players on your team are garbage. My team is so much better than yours, Nick. I say that knowing that I do the exact same thing, so don't at me. Um, but yeah, I like his team. He's got a lot of good players. It's just I don't want to move him up because he's Nick, and B, is his team really good? Yeah, I guess. I mean, we'll see. God, I hate this. I'm just gonna move on. I don't like looking at Nick's team at number 5. At number 4, we have Matt S. moving up one spot. Captain Kirk had a little bit of an off week, but I think he's still gonna be good. A lot of people are worried about Jordan Howard. I'm not there yet. I don't think that that's how it's gonna work out. So I'm just gonna keep Howard as a running back 1 for now. James White, on the other hand, I like to see how he ends up working out moving forward with Sony Michel. They both are getting a lot of work, but I'm curious to see which of them ends up becoming the guy. And then you got Brown and Woods and Watkins as your wide receivers, which are all great. Not to mention on your bench, you have Larry Fitzgerald and Marvin Jones, two people who are underperforming what they were drafted for, but could always turn it around. You got Mark Ingram coming back, so you can mix him into that Howard, White, and Ingram nonsense. You currently carrying 2 Indianapolis running backs, which I think is kind of crazy. And then you have Evan Ingram, who I wouldn't start this week, but if he's healthy, then maybe next week. And but in the meantime, you have Vance McDonald, who was supposed to be good and then wasn't. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And then you got a good defense. So really liking what Matt S has gone on. And then finally for the S class, that's right, it's the All-Star class. I was supposed to have this sound on. Oh yeah, get it, Shrek. Get it, Shrek. So in this All-Star class, we have the top 3. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I ruined it. I'm just gonna go back to this. This didn't make any sense without audio. Now that makes more sense. So let's move back up to Steve. Last week was the number 2. He falls down to number 3 because he had some issues, but I feel like those are just temporary issues. Matt Ryan is really good. I don't think Correll's going to be that good, but he was on your bench, I'm pretty sure, last week, and you had somebody else. I think you had Frank Gore starting. But in the meantime, just keep starting Crowell because he'll just randomly go off. Ridley had a bad week, though. Rudolph had a bad week. You didn't have Evans. I don't know. You got a lot going on, and I like what it's happening. I'm sorry. I really got to go a little faster with this because there is just nonsense going on. So for now, Steve, I like your team. You were able to retain in that higher end stuff, even though James fell way down. Malcolm, you were right. Steve did have the better team than James for a while there. So you were at number 3. At number 2, we have Matty M. He's at number 2. I'm pretty sure I put him there just because. Just Corey Davis, really? That's you have a wide receiver too. I mean, if Shady ends up becoming the guy and he gets traded and all that, then who cares who your wide receiver 2 is? You could not start somebody. You're gonna have freaking 3 top 10 running backs, as well as Julian Edelman, who I think is going to just continue to be really, really good. Who cares? Your team's going to be great. You can just trade one of those running backs away and get an absolute stud wide receiver and some. If you traded away Melvin Gordon and Zach Ertz, you could probably get a low-end number 1 running back and a low-end number 1 wide receiver, and that's just stupid. but that's how good you are. So just congratulations. You got a great team. But at number one, I'm putting Mike back up there in the garbage rock. He is soaring to greatness. He's at number one. He's taken off. And yeah, no, he's number one. Um, yeah, Matt's wide receivers are garbage. I agree. I think Edelman can be good, but for now, no. Then we look at Mike, and Mike, what does he have for garbage? It's well, not Michael Thomas, because when he comes in, he's going to slot right into that wide receiver 2 slot, which is insane. And he'll have Hopkins and Michael Thomas as his number one. Number two, he'll have Gronk, who I think is going to come back. He's got Lindsey, McCaffrey, Watson. He's got a solid defense around him. The only issue he has is in his flex, and he's got Matt Breida. And Matt Breida can go in there, and he can lock that slot down like it's nobody's business. And you know what? That's why he's number one, because he's got Matt Breida on his team. In all reality, Matt Breida is the key to Frida Ming your way to number one. Got there. Yeah, in 3 to 4 weeks, but it's still like just having on your bench gives you points on your team. Like it just makes the rest of your players play better because you got Matt Breida. So yeah, so that's it for this week. I gotta get going. Thank you all for watching. Sorry it's so crazy. But yeah, so I'll see you guys next time here at Horsehead Weekly. Yeah. So yeah, do good things for everybody. Do good things.